Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie. Bradley's mother, Narcisse Golan, passed away 3 months ago. He is autistic and needs structured routine and therapies he receives for his autism 6 days a week. However, Italy just entrusted Bradley to Italian social services. If he is ruled to go back, he will face the next 3 to 4 years in the Italian foster care system where he can't speak or understand the language. He will be then taken away from the only family he has ever known. Please call Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390, New York State, Governor Hochul at 518-474-8390. And you're also welcome to call the senator. Hashtag keep Bradley safe. I have a return guest back on. I have Deborah Craig all the way from Scotland. She was last on February 2nd, 2023, season 4, episode 26, where we talked about the focus on intuitive life mentoring and hypnotherapy. And we discussed that change in your self-esteem is an inside job that creates self-worth. And I totally welcome you, Deborah, back to Slam the Gavel. And, I know we're going to talk about toxicity in families and even in friendships, and what do we do with that?
Absolutely. It's so great to be back, Marianne. Thanks for having me back. Thoroughly enjoyed our last conversation, and I think it's quite an important topic to explore, the area of sort of toxic behaviours within family dynamics and friendships. I think one of the things that recently I've been more focused on is reminding myself that not necessarily that the people are toxic, it's the behaviours and the actions and the thought processes that are unhelpful. And I guess I can relate to this not only in my own family dynamic, but also in friendships and extended connections, and what I see in the connections of the clients that I work with. Because as you know, I'm an intuitive life mentor and hypnotherapist, so I'm always sort of helping people heal from the inside so that they can become all they want to be in life. But the key thing is, if their energy is being expended externally, or they are being I suppose, sort of dragged down by other people in their periphery, whether it's family or friends who are not aligned to how they want to be, then that in itself can actually be really impactful in bringing people down and keeping them down, rather than being able to flourish and actually live the life that they really want and do it in a happy and healthy way. So happy to talk about this today, Marianne. Take your lead on any questions that you have. So yes, by all means, fire away.
Well, family members they can be, I don't know, just very odd sometimes. You think you've known your favorite aunt for so long, and when you go through a hardship, everybody disappears. They may either disappear on you, or you may have a family member say, well, I don't know what you're going to do about that. Just walk out of that situation, or whatever. They just throw their hands in the air, and they get to the point where they don't want to hear what's going on in your life.
Yeah, that's hard, doesn't it? Because unless if you've gone through life and everything's been pretty smooth, you've probably not noticed, maybe the depth of the relationship that you have with people. And as you say, something comes up, something really challenging that you feel that you're stuck in, maybe you're having a difficult time, then yes, it can be difficult for people in your family, if they've not experienced it themselves, to actually see things from your perspective and to give you that understanding. I think in my own family life, just to give an example, Marianne, sometimes I think it's easier when we use an example and put it into context. So in my own family unit, one of my sisters has been divorced. And I would say she for quite a long period of time was stuck in that environment where she was in a bit of a victimhood mentality, and I would say that it's probably still there to a degree, and she'll figure this out in her own time. But what I noticed is that it's important. Two things that have came up for me, right? That which I think really relates to the sort of, I find that in the beginning, it was very easy to be empathetic and sympathetic and supportive because it was very raw and fresh. But when you're many years down the line and you're still hearing the same thing, it can be incredibly difficult to maintain that same level of empathy and sympathy, because there does come a point where if something isn't going to change, then the thing that needs to change is the person's attitude towards the situation so that they can then move on with their life. And one of the things that I found in my own situation was I could feel myself starting to get a bit frustrated. And, you know, in the line of work that I do, people might think, God, you know, you're so balanced and zen, and how can that happen? Well, I'm human like everybody else. So of course, when it's the same thing on repeat over and over and over, it can eventually wear you down. So I guess one of the first things that I noticed or that I addressed within myself was, unless I've walked a mile, an exact mile in this person's shoes, word for word, then how will I ever know what devastation they've experienced? So it's one thing to listen and think, well, lots of people get divorced. Well, my own mum and dad get divorced. Well, you know, so it's easy to have a judgment on that, on how fast someone should get over it, you know?
Yeah.
Right? So for me, that was my first thing was, okay, first and foremost, there's no point in getting frustrated about it or hitting her with solutions every 5 seconds on how to turn things around. She'll turn it around in her own time. But the thing that I recognised was I don't need to be in it with her every minute of the day. So two things I recognised was, one was for me to adopt some healthy boundaries where I was giving the level of energy that I could, that was available to me, that also supported her, but where I was still maintaining enough boundaries and energy for me to live my own life fully and not be drawn in to everything, every single conversation. So that was the first thing, was I looked at what my situation was and where I could make changes. And the second part was I continue to remind myself still to this day, I have not walked a mile in your shoes. So how could I possibly know exactly how you feel about all of this and to what depths you've been traumatized or damaged or hurt or whatever the case may be? And, you know, I might have a way of overcoming things that's different to other people, but people will heal in their own time when they decide they're ready to do it, not on my watch. But I just don't need to be in it every minute of every day, being drawn into it. I get to decide how much energy I have available and how much time I can actually be there to support. So it's a two-way thing. It's being empathetic and supportive, but also putting in healthy boundaries that lets me maintain my own energy to live my life while still supporting one of my family members. So I guess that's one example of how the behaviours can be challenging, but it's not always just about the other person. We have to decide when it's right for us to take a step back too and have that confidence that we can recognise that in ourselves and to do that. It's not easy, but it can be done.
You know, and I think people that are going through situations, they should find, you know, like, I guess a group on Facebook, for instance, or something, you know, even in their town that has groups on whatever their problem is, and go to like-minded people that are going through the same thing. And then you've got a support system where you're not draining your family or friends, because people are saying, well, I'm losing close friends. And sometimes you lose a close friend just like that. I mean, and you just even brought up a topic, and they've never heard the topic before, yet they hang the phone up on you. It's done. And that's kind of strange because they didn't hear the whole story. They just hung up.
Yeah.
Maybe
And I
they were
think,
having a bad day, but I don't think that's right to do to someone either.
yeah, I think there's certainly a way to um, manage situations. But I don't think, I think we're maybe less equipped than we think sometimes to manage difficult situations, because it's one thing to be in a friendship or a relationship when everything's plain sailing and life is all full of fun and rainbows and unicorns. That isn't real life. When the chips are down and hard things are happening, I do think that friendships and family relationships and all sorts of relationships get really tested. Um, and I do think that as much as for the person that has gone through the trauma or, the situation, as much as it's difficult for them, I don't always think it's easy breezy either for the other people in their life, because they're not used to this exchange of conversation all the time. And, when you're with people that are constantly stuck in a loop,
Yes.
and they can't seem to find their way out, then there does have to come a point where the person that's gone through the experience has a decision to make about how much longer am I going to allow this to consume every part of my life and keep impacting things. And it's not about saying, I'll never talk about it again. That's not realistic. We have to be able to express, but maybe we would be better served with a therapist or some other form of outlet, like you said, some other kind of support group or community where we can actually share our message free from judgment and free from anyone trying to jump in with a solution. Because let's be honest, friends and family, they don't mean to do it, but that's what people do. They want to jump in there as the fixer, and start suggesting. Sometimes you just want to be heard. So that's where I think sometimes people might be better served, sharing all of this to that extent in a therapeutic environment. But I guess what I've experienced is someone that goes into therapy or that seeks genuine help is making a decision to move forward. Those that maintain the position they're in and only sort of, maybe not complain, that seems a bit harsh, but they stuck in that loop and going over it and the same thing with family or friends. There's a choice there that they're making to stay in that. And I guess it's about taking that control back about how much you want it to impact your life. And you can even make the choice that as much as it's a painful experience, you want to heal. And when you want to heal, you'll seek the help. But I think everyone gets there at their own pace and maybe not as fast as the recipients of it might want you to. You can't force people to do things at our pace. They've got to do it at their own pace, even if we feel it's maybe detrimental for them to sit in this toxic experience for any longer. But we're all different. We're all built different.
And I think if you're in a certain situation, if this person is in a certain situation and they go to a counselor and that one didn't work, and then they go to another one and that one didn't work, I always, tell people, just keep searching for someone you click with, because there are counselors that get what you're going through.
Yes.
Like, for instance, counselors that are familiar, we'll say, with the topic of family court. So they're going to get every emotion and understand exactly what you're going through. And I think instead of, draining your, I hate to use that, isn't that a terrible term, draining your family members? But because it's just easier to talk to someone who gets it.
Yes.
And, even when I was going through things, I had a lot of friends that got it. And I also had a brilliant counselor that knew everybody, knew what was going on. And that was extremely helpful. So I wasn't really burdening, my friends as much, because I was busy filing things. But But I just feel bad for people that tell me that, they've lost such close friends. And like I said, I lost a close friend who just hung up on me and I just didn't even really say much. And I had never really really harped on the topic, but if people are funny, you just don't know.
And you just
And
don't,
oh, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, no, what were you going to say?
Well, my mother always said, don't be a fair weathered friend. So you I think family members have to also realize that this person, whatever they're going through, is going through such a painful process. Maybe listen for a little while or say, I've got only half an hour. I got to go feed the dogs. I've got to go to the shops or whatever, and listen to them just for a little while. And sometimes that's all they need is just to be
Yeah.
calmed down.
I think that's really key because it's not always about, they're not looking for you to come in with this big life-changing solution. That some people, it's just, as you say, they just want to be heard in that moment. And I think that if you can hold space for someone like that, it's a really, it's a gift. It's a
Mhm,
gift to be able to do that because
mhm,
not everybody is able to do that. They don't always have that the patience or that sort of capacity to do that.
mhm,
So I do try my best, and it's
mhm,
probably because of my background and what I do is a career that makes things probably a little bit easier for me to be more patient and empathetic. But um, I think just holding space for someone, even just to let them vent.
yeah,
Sometimes I'm reading actually a really interesting book just now called The Chimp Paradox. And it talks about our chimp mind and our human mind and how we can easily get hijacked by our chimp, which is the one that, tries to keep us safe. So it stops us doing things that we maybe would want to do, but we get fearful of it. It keeps us stuck in old patterns and thought processes. So it can be quite unhelpful the majority of the time.
mhm,
And with the somebody that, for example, that's wanting to vent, sometimes that's a when you think about their chimp jumping up and down and trying
yeah,
to get their attention, sometimes all they need is just to get it out, say it all out loud, and then once they get it out there, they're just like, right, now I can start to engage the human brain, the logical part of my brain, because I'm not being hijacked by the emotion. So sometimes it's just holding that space 10, 15 minutes just to let someone vent. But I
mhm,
think the key thing there, and this is part of what I've read in the book as well, which is really relevant, is that if someone is going to vent, then they're looking to somebody that's not going to judge them,
mhm,
somebody that can be empathetic and just hold space. And I think if you can be one of those people for somebody, then it's a real gift to be able to do that. And I don't think that the person will forget anytime soon that you were somebody that was there for them in their
mhm,
time of crisis. Um, so I think there's a balance between being there, being holding space, empathy, non-judgmental, and then enabling somebody, keeping them stuck in the pattern by encouraging the conversation or the behaviors. And even over and above that, where the person's coming to you consistently, you've got to put in some healthy boundaries. So it's a two-way thing. It's a recognizing that their chimp's jumping up and down and it just needs to vent, and
mhm,
then giving them that space without judgment and without solutions. And then recognizing in yourself, if you're seeing the phone ringing and it's going to be, it's going to
mhm,
be something challenging and you don't feel in a great place, is knowing that you don't have to answer that phone call.
mhm.
Nobody's holding you to the fact that you don't have to answer it. So you've got to set your own healthy boundaries more than anything else.
Mhm. Oh, I totally agree. If you're not ready, like if it's in the morning and you just want to relax and enjoy your morning and you get a phone call and you're looking at the phone going, "Oh man, I know what this is going to be about." Just go eat your breakfast and settle down and then wait an hour or so and then maybe call them back and see what they have to say. Because sometimes it's a quick phone call. They just want to maybe even tell you something positive, you know. But it's just it's so sad for these people that are just stuck in, as you said, like just going around and around in this big dilemma or problem that they're in,
Yeah.
and they can't get out. And the name of that book, you said, Chimp Mind, Human Mind?
Chimp Paradox.
Chimp Paradox.
Yeah, I can't remember the Stephen something or other. I think can't remember the name of the author, but it's really good. It's a really interesting book that really gives a lot of context into understanding the human mind and a little bit about what's going on when we're getting hijacked by our emotional brain. Because people that have had a lot of trauma or, difficult experiences, the ones that are getting stuck in the venting and stuck in the old cycles, the likelihood is they're being hijacked a lot by their emotional brain. And what you want to do is be able to balance that out by understanding, well, what does it need at that point? What is it looking for? Does it need to feel safe? Well, how can you make it feel safe? Does it need some attention? Well, what are you going to do to give it attention? And it might be that it just needs to vent, and then you're looking for someone to vent out to. Actually, you said something a minute ago there that was quite interesting. You mentioned that. Now, what was it you said? Because I wanted to say something about it. You mentioned. It'll come back to me. I was just thinking about the mind and how it plays tricks on us and how we can keep ourselves stuck in these old patterns. But we all have the opportunity to make the change. It's just sometimes it's more difficult for some people than others. If you don't understand how your mind works, I think that's probably one of the biggest gifts you can ever give yourself, is to do a bit of work on yourself, to understand how your brain works, how your mind actually works, and what it really needs to be able to manage your emotions and to take that control of your life. One of the things as well was, when you were talking earlier, I was thinking about making sure that you take time out to fill up your own cup. Like if you are somebody, that's it, it's just came back to me. I knew it would come back to me, right? So I had a friend the other day. That's what you need to do. When you think too hard about it, you'll never get it. But when you go away, it will come straight back to you, right? So I had a call the other, I have a friend that's going through a few challenges just now, and it's to do with courts, interestingly, children's with a child. And I was in the middle of a few things. I'd just been on some challenging calls, and I knew she'd had a difficult day at court, and I saw that she tried to phone me, but I was in the kind of middle of a few things, but I was also incredibly drained that day. I was just really drained. I just didn't have it in me to get into, because she was angry and frustrated, and I thought, I'm just going to have to wait here to try and get my energy up. So I actually messaged her a wee while later, just a couple of hours later, saying, look, I was doing some client work. I've now got a couple of client calls. Tomorrow I'm out all day, but I'm all yours on Friday. We can have a good chat. And what was nice was she'd messaged me back a while later saying, actually, I've calmed down a lot now. I feel a lot better about things. And yeah, that'll be great just to get a catch up on Friday. So interestingly, sometimes in the moment when someone's all fired up and all, emotional, sometimes not answering can also give them an opportunity to diffuse the situation themselves without it going into, without it being made any bigger through any comments that you could be making, like to make the situation even not worse, but to feed it, I think was the word I was looking for, when you feed somebody and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So sometimes it's helpful, just as helpful when you're not there immediately as it is when you are there immediately. So.
Right. I know when my kids were real, like super little babies, and they would suck their fingers, their 2 fingers, and they would calm themselves down. So, my mother was babysitting and the baby was crying, so she just put the 2 fingers in the kid's mouth, and I said, "Why are you doing that?" And she said, "Well, this helps them calm themselves down. They need to learn how to calm themselves down." And I thought, "Well, that was interesting. It worked. It did work." And I think even from that age, people aren't gonna remember how to calm themselves down.
Mhm.
Okay, because that's you can't, I don't know, remember infancy. I
Mhm.
know I can't.
Nope.
But, it's, like you said, like, they can diffuse the situation on their own,
Mhm.
and that's happened to me too. I've told someone, "Oh, I can call you tomorrow." It was like 10 o'clock at night, and I was just, oh,
Mhm.
and, I did call the person back, at 9 in the morning, and, oh, goodness, she felt better, and we
Yeah.
just talked a little bit, and then we got off the phone. But, I always feel I have to answer the phone, but what I also do is, if you are listening to someone, and this goes for family members, if you have a family member going through something, listen to them, but why not take the mop and start cleaning your floors at the same time,
Yep.
and doing something else that's also, because when someone's telling you something stressful, then you're gonna pick up this stress in your chest, in your mind, and, just start doing something, even upper body, knit, sew, do something that is kind of getting your mind off of what they're you're getting your mind off their stress level. You're
Yeah.
listening to them, but you're getting your mind off their stress level.
Yeah. I can relate to that because I find that without realizing it, sometimes when somebody comes at you, they're really stressed, or
Mhm,
they're almost sort of not quite panic attack, but going in that direction. When that comes at you and it's unexpected, and you just don't see it coming, then I very quickly pick up on that. And then, as you say, my heart starts to beat faster and I'm all uptight and I'm thinking, gosh, what am I going to do to help this person? And you feel quite helpless. And then there's no denying that that stays with you, that
mhm,
you feel that feeling, and it kind of infiltrates itself throughout the rest of maybe your morning or afternoon. So you're right. Sometimes to just be putting movement in your body, just getting up
mhm,
and moving around while you're talking probably isn't a bad thing,
mhm,
as you say. So that's probably a good suggestion, actually, even for myself going forward, that would be
mhm,
helpful if I'm ever experiencing anything like that again. Um, but you're right. I think energetically, we do pick up on people's uh, energy very, very quickly. And if they
mhm,
are up here, so if they're in fight or flight and then they speak to you instantly, you're picking that up straight away as well. And
mhm,
that's often less than helpful, that's for sure.
mhm. And some of my friends said, "Don't recommend psychologists to people because a lot of them are horrible." But I think some of them are good, and you have to, going back to what I was saying, you have to find the one you click with.
Mm-hmm.
That, a psychologist can't write medications, at least over here
Correct.
in the
Same
US.
here. Same here.
Yeah,
Same here.
so, you're just talking to someone, and, find someone that you can click with, like I said, and you're not draining your friends. And if your friends say, "Well, hey, how are things going?" Just say, "Same old thing, different
Mm-hmm.
day." And just give them that answer, and then say, "Well, what's going on with you?" And just even change the topic of the horror that you're going through, because all you're doing, at least, is reliving it all the time.
Yes. Yes. And that's one of the key things is, yes, people when they're first going through something do want to talk about it a lot, and that makes sense because they want to process the emotion and release it. But you're right, after a period of time, each time they're telling the story, or each new person they're telling it to, it is just reinforcing it again. And it's not about saying don't acknowledge it, but maybe you maybe finding other topics to talk about, because there's no denying that you know you can take your mind off things and redirect your thought processes. One of the things that and I know that this might be hard to hear for some people that are going through trauma right now, because when you're in the thick of it and you're not ready to seek new ways to be and to get out of where you are, then hearing what I'm about to say next might feel jarring. But I'm a believer of this is one element that will really take you from where you are into the next phase. And I talk about having an attitude of gratitude. So yes, this particular situation might be bleak. Yes, what's going on might be terrible. It might be nothing you ever expected to happen. But if you're able to find even the smallest things in your life to be grateful for, and if you can lead from a place of gratitude, then you will bring more of the same in. When you're in that negative space and everything is bleak and the world is against me and nothing's ever going right and I have nothing good in my life, then you will only bring in more of the same. So if you're able to have a small shift, even every day, if you're able to write out 5 things that you're grateful for, and it could be simple. You know, for us in Scotland, we can, and I know this is not the case even in certain places in England, and it's not the case, like not even in every household in Scotland, because if you live in a flat, you might not be able to do this. But for me, I'm grateful for a simple pleasure, which has been able to go into my kitchen, run the tap and have a glass of water. But not everybody can do that. It's not even in Scotland, because not everybody's got the lovely Scottish fresh water coming through their pipes. So it might sound really simplistic. And I know that if we're going through a trauma, sometimes it's easy to feel, oh, that just feels really flippant. But I'm genuine here when I say, when you have an attitude of gratitude, what happens is the brain can't be happy and sad at the same time, right? It just can't. So if you're thinking about things that are good,
right?
If you're thinking about today, you know, I've got food in my fridge and I've got money in my pocket, so I can do X, Y, and Z. Or it might be, I'm so grateful for the fact that I have my kids these 2 days, and I know they'll be going away again, but I'm so grateful that on these 2 days I have them and I'm going to make the most of it. So it could be simple things like that. Or I'm so grateful, you might hate your job, but I'm so grateful that I earn an income which affords me to live in this house and do this hobby. I don't know what it is. There's always a way to see it from an attitude of gratitude. And when we are grateful, what happens in the brain is, when we are happy, or when we express gratitude, we automatically send up dopamine and serotonin to the brain, which is the happy hormones, rather than cortisol and adrenaline. So especially the cortisol. So which is when we are stressed and anxious, we send that up to the brain, and that can obviously have a negative impact on us. But if we're sending up the dopamine and the serotonin, that's the good stuff. So if we feel good, we're going to move forward feeling good. Whereas if we think constantly about the negative and we keep ourselves stuck looking for problems, then we will continuously either be in fight or flight, and the cortisol will be running through the body. All of these things are not helpful to move you past the challenges that you're in.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you just said, is stop looking for problems. Like, I talk to a lot of people going through these issues, and they're already thinking of what's going to happen next. And my counselor always said, stop, stay in the now. Just stay in the now, what's happening today. And just focus on what you're going to do today. And it's really hard to do.
Very. But once you're there, like once you have that mindset, as much as it's difficult to
Mhm.
maybe get past it, you know, if we work with some kind of repetition, so each day looking for some of the positives, each day looking for the things we're grateful for, each day doing something like a random act of kindness for someone
Mhm.
else, small things like that can start to lead to bigger, you know, sort of happier outcomes for ourselves. Sometimes it takes the edge off of how we're feeling within ourselves. Because
Mhm.
when we're kind to someone else, it's the best feeling in the world. You know, when
Right.
we put something out and someone's like, oh, so grateful for that. Like I never expected it. It was so kind. And that in itself not only makes the other person feel good, but it makes you feel good too. So the more things that we can do to make ourselves feel good, then generally speaking, we're going to be at least going in the right direction.
Mhm.
But you're right. This, I think I did a talk last night in my membership group, and when we were talking about victimhood mentality, and I
Mm.
think it's really easy for us to get stuck there. And I'm not excluded from that. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
I've been there, so I actually know what it feels like to feel like, you know, why is everyone else's life looking like this? Why am I
Mhm.
always getting overlooked for a promotion? Why am I stuck in this situation when they're not? How are they meeting all these great people and I'm not? You know, always looking out, thinking, why is everything better for somebody else? Or, you
Mhm.
know, holding on to the past like it was the decisions that, or the, you know, the past was the the way that my future was going to be, when in actual fact, when you realize that you're in control, so there's parts that you're not in control of, and
Mhm.
that's the thing. It's the differentiator between what am I in control of and what am I not. And it's really understanding more about what you're in control of, which is your own thoughts, your own mind, your own actions, your own behaviors. You know, you get to control how you treat other people. You're in control of that, but you're not in control of what other people think, what other
Mhm.
people are going to do, what other people are going to say.
Mhm.
So the more we can separate and focus on what we can control, the easier it is to almost try and climb our way out
Mhm.
of those feelings of that victimhood mentality, that
Mhm.
negative thinking spiral. But it's all a journey. And I
Mhm.
think when any kind of trauma has happened, I do just think in general there's a healing process that goes
Mhm.
on. And, you know, it might be you have one counsellor and you'll do a bit of work and you'll feel good. And then in another wee while you'll do another bit of work with somebody else
Mhm.
and it'll move you on another little bit. It's just stages. But I
Mhm.
think having the focus of you want things to be different and you want things to change,
Mhm.
then it can change. Um, and, you know, sort of to go back to that sort of family, friends, toxicity thing, you know, nobody in your connections, you know, family or friends, could ever crucify you for not trying. You know,
Mhm.
if you're actively trying to heal yourself and
Mhm.
move yourself forward, then I don't think there's any more than you can't do any more than that.
Mhm.
So I think if you're still feeling that, you know, you're getting stuck in a cycle, but if people can see that you're actively trying to get out of it, I think
Mhm.
people are probably a little bit more empathetic and forgiving on that, and
Right.
probably hold space for you a bit easier. Just hard when I think it's difficult when people are staying stuck and it almost feels like they're kind of choosing to stay there. That one's difficult for people to manage long term, people around you, because it one negative energy doesn't take long before it disperses out and it can pull down a unit, you
Mhm.
know, within a family unit or a friendship group. And you don't want to point people out, but at the end of the day, people also want to protect themselves. Because at the end of the day, we're here for our own survival as well. You know,
Mhm.
we're here to
Mhm.
keep ourselves safe and to live our lives fully. So, you know, it's difficult. It can be a bit of a catch-22.
I know when you said about enabling, I think also you know, that saying, misery likes company. And I
Gosh,
think
definitely.
people that, you know, have been traumatized by something, there are some people that will listen to you and just enable you to continuously talk about it, and they get pleasure out of that.
Yeah. I think that that's a real thing, because some people don't want you to heal and move on because it's to their benefit that you stay in that position, because
Mhm,
then they have someone as an equal for them, or perhaps they're able to have some sort of, I don't know, maybe keeping you in that position gives them some form of power feeling, you know, that they're
mhm,
in the stronger position now, and it would suit them to see you in a non-healed position.
mhm,
Um, so I do think definitely you've got a point there, like misery does love company. And I think real friends, whilst they'll listen to you, empathize, sympathize, and you know what, they probably will join in now and again and, you know, say, God, you know what, they are a terrible person that did that to you and
mm,
blah, blah, blah. But I think people that are really great friends want their friends to heal, want their friends to come out the other side of it and
mhm,
live their life fully in the happiest way possible. And that can't be staying stuck in the
mhm,
old trauma or the old cycle. You're not going to be able to move on fully
mhm,
until you start to heal and release the things that don't serve you anymore.
mhm. And, you know, I know you do hypnotherapy,
Mhm.
and, you know, I had talked with you yesterday, and I'm impressed because I let you hypnotize me. And I remember when I used to work on a I was a psych nurse and I worked on the psych unit, and I asked a psychiatrist, and he was a pretty good psychiatrist. I said, "What do you think of, you know, hypnotizing people?" And he goes, "Don't ever let anyone control your mind." I'm going, "Okay," you know, but I let you only because I had a situation that I just wanted to be released from and to not think about my situation all, you know, just because I had told you it was a constant
Mhm.
thing. And so I let you hypnotize me, and there was nothing negative about it. It was
No.
all positive and positive reinforcement.
Mhm.
And I think it took like what, 12 minutes or something like that. It was
It was about maybe about 20.
20.
There,
Okay.
that's easy. You get time distortion when you're under hypnosis, so it feels short for you, but
Yeah.
it's maybe a bit longer when I'm delivering it. I think the key thing is there, no one can control your mind. So I appreciate what that psychiatrist said many years ago, but no one's controlling your mind. You
Mhm,
can still reject anything that doesn't feel aligned for you, even under
mhm,
hypnosis. And also, if something just didn't feel like how you would, so like if I was to say something to you that just did not fit at all, you would just reject it. And
mhm,
also at any time you're still awake, so you could just open your eyes and, you know, come out of hypnosis at any time. So
mhm,
if you really don't want to experience something and you really don't want to have thoughts about certain things, I'm not going to be able to implant that in any
mhm,
way into you. But what we can do is through the therapeutic element, which is where I get to know someone, I understand their problems, I find how they want to move past it. And in a way, what I do from there is then I will create something that aligns to what they've told me. And
mhm,
I will use hypnosis at that point therapeutically to then help them. For you in your case, was to let down this weight that you've been carrying about with you, that
mhm,
was holding you down, that was keeping you stuck, and was to give yourself that chance to remind yourself that it's important for you to energetically fill up your cup
mhm,
and not put yourself down at the bottom of the list. So, you know, it was a really lovely experience working with you and getting to know more about you and what your challenges are. But I think for anyone that wants to feel free from something,
mhm,
then hypnotherapy is spot on. I think for anyone particularly that wants to, so for me, I work with a lot of people that are ready to take control of their life and actually start creating a life that I talk about, a life that you love. So is it better relationships? Is it careers that are more fulfilling? Is it just that spring back in your step again? You know, what is it that makes a life that you love? What would that look like for you? And at the moment, I find that clients that come to me feel that their life has got out of control and it's happening to them instead of for them. And for me, I like to help clients through my programs take back control of their life, you know, find balance again, release what doesn't serve them, and build strong self-belief so that they can go on and live their life to the fullest, basically.
Because after you did the countdown and I opened my eyes, and as we were even going through this hypnotherapy, I just felt like my back just felt lighter.
Excellent.
And it was really, and the top of my head kind of like it just felt kind of fuzzy, but it was just an awesome experience. And even this morning, I felt just better about life.
And that's the key of it's about feeling that release and a new perspective. And, you know, I'm a life coach, a life mentor, life coach, whatever you want to call it as well. But for me, using that together with hypnotherapy has so much power because you're able to let things go. Now, you can talk about letting things go, but it's just not the same. I don't feel as being able to go to the deepest parts of your subconscious and physically feel like you're letting it go and then creating a new story for your future that you can see in your mind's eye gives you that real sense of positivity and hope that things will be different.
And things are different now.
There you go.
You
And
know,
that was quick.
yeah, thanks to you, because I know you had said sometimes it takes a couple of sessions, but I think I was like super ready. I had been searching for this for like a year. And it's like, someone's just got to be able to make this go away, like now. And it did the trick.
Yeah, and I think the key is you were ready, which means you're halfway there to success for yourself anyway. There's no way of, you know, I'm not there to remove memories. That's not how it works. But what I helped you with yesterday was creating the distance between you and the memory. So the memory's still there because that's life. You know, you've had the experience, but now there's so much distance between you and it that it doesn't feel as intense as when you're right in it. So just gave you the power back to be able to step back from it and feel like you were a spectator of the situation rather than the one in it. And that's the difference that you experienced yesterday. So yeah, it was brilliant working with you. And I'm glad that you got so much out of it. I'm so delighted about that. And I've loved everything that we've spoke about today, as always. It's such a great conversation.
And I'd like to have you back on again as well.
Always, yeah, definitely. I'm sure we can have plenty more topics that we'll come up with between now and then.
Oh, definitely. And I know people are going to ask, you know, how can you be reached?
Yeah, sure. So the easiest way is just through my website, www.deborah, which is Deborah, and all the one word. My second name is Craig, Craig.com. I'm also on all the socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, and I've also got a YouTube channel if you look up my name. So lots of free stuff there, lots of access. I've got a podcast as well that if you're looking for insight on how to get unstuck in your life, I've got a whole host of amazing guests on there where we talk about client work, talk about personal experiences on how to get unstuck and just get moving forward in life.
Oh, yeah. I recommend that. That was, I'm just so glad I met you.
Likewise, to be honest, because I really enjoy sharing my message. So it's been thoroughly enjoyable being back on today, Marianne.
Well, thank you, and don't jump off.
I'm
Slam
not going to.
the gavel. Slam the Gavel's a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption: Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here with Deborah Craig, all the way from Scotland, again in the future. So thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you as well, Marianne. See you all again soon.
Definitely.